Hey there everyone, Luke here, and I know this review has been a couple of weeks getting out here, and I apologise for that, but that's because I was sick last week, so I felt like I wasn't up to snuff to do the review. But hey ho, we had a week break last week, which was which was beneficial on my part. It meant that I could relax and get back and get better. And yeah, it's a good job that I did wait this week, because as we found out from the recent announcements that this chapter, the chapter that came out before the 2-week break, is essentially the finale of part 2, because it's been announced that part 3 will be happening in the next couple of weeks. And yeah, it does seem like, based on the author comments, it might actually be the final part, although it does say it did say, from my understanding, that it was going to go on for a little bit longer, and like, it was in quotations. I'm just about to get it up right now to find out, like, hey, was this actually true? So yeah, I did send it to Party Jams, and he was like, yeah, it does seem like it is going to be. Yeah, it says the story will continue for a little longer, according to the series author comments. Now, what that actually means is anyone's guess. When they say a little longer, are they talking about like it going to be like, oh yeah, it's going to go on for longer than I anticipated, not too long, but it's not going to be ending like within like, I want to say, the next 6 months. I'm going to say part 3 is actually going to be just as long as part 1 and part 2. So I would say like maybe around 100 chapters, like rounding out chapter like 300, 320, 325. I would say that would be like a pretty ballpark estimate to say now. Like 325 is when we start to wind down of the series, so that we get a decent amount of time before the series ends, and part 3 gets like as much focus as part 2 and part 1 did, because I feel like that would be the most fair, considering like some of the stuff we still have to get on with this series. That I would say is around about a substantial amount of time. So yeah, with part 2, was it as good as part 1? In parts, yes, but in other parts, no. So it was kind of like a mixed bag with part 2, and I'm hoping that part 3 really starts to get back into like what made the series so enjoyable in part 1. But anyway, for now, we'll begin with chapter 224, titled The Scent of Romance. So from the last chapter, we had Murray, because of the butterfly that went into him, finally being able to release the shackles of like his his bindings, of his curse of being like, no, I'm just a familiar to Nico, and nothing else can change that. But because of that butterfly, he was able to release his true feelings, and he's very happy for that. But Nico obviously knows, like, no, this is wrong. This is totally wrong. And I do like the direction that they took in this chapter, of being like, Nico saying to herself, like, well, I am happy that this went the way that I'd always wanted it to go. Is Murray's heart truly in the right place here? Because remember, it's like her magic influencing his decision, and this is something I don't think she wants. Like, she wants Murray to be like, look, tell me how you're feeling without any magic, without any influence. Tell me exactly how you're feeling. And Nico brings it up like he was going to say something different at first, and he only said that because it was under the free release spell. So that was the whole reason why he was able to go into that mode and be like, great, I'm free to finally express what I'm able to say. And again, Nico says exactly what I just said, that look, I want you to do this, but I don't want you to be under any influence whatsoever. No spells, no magic. Can you actually do this? And as soon as she's able to release the spell from him, because she's able to get the butterfly out of him, but as soon as that happens, we see like the amorphous spell like just going back in. So it's kind of like his shackles are being reforged on himself, as Keiko says, oh, she took the spell back, and it's the last one. Nico's fully back to her old self now. So yeah, like I said, this was obviously gonna happen at some point, like the ending of part 2, the ending of the Adventures of the Small Witch, because Nico's not a small witch anymore. She's back to a full teenage self. And like I said, there's a lot of things that have got to happen in the series right now, not just with Nico and Murray, but with some of the side gigs. Like we've got obviously got to wrap up the story of Nemu. We've got her romance with Keigo. That's going to be like addressed. We've also got to like deal with the elephant in the room that maybe Charmy is going to be taught by Nico at some point, kind of like the reverse, like where the student becomes the master and the master becomes the student, because Nico is now older than her. Obviously Nico getting back into school, that's going to be a few chapters in and of itself. And of course we've got to do the whole deal with like the Warlocks reviving Juru, like of maybe Juru taking over Nico and Nico being the final antagonist of the series alongside Juru. That's something that we've got to address as well. So there's still quite a bit of story that still needs to be actually addressed at this point. And given the fact that the author has taken his time to develop all these plot lines, I get the feeling that it's going to be even more time for the resolution to actually come about. And of course, as we all expected, the second that the spell is released from Murray, he goes back to the blank expression, like, hey, obviously being shackled again to what he truly feels deep down, and like, no, I can't feel anything for Nico. Which again, this was something that I feel like a lot of us were like, wait, is this happening because he's under the influence of the spell, or is it truly how he feels? And it's kind of like a bit of both in a sense. Like, this is really how Murray truly feels, but at the same time, it's partly being exaggerated because of the spell. As Nico goes on and says, yeah, I knew this was coming, but still, that look says your heart shut up tight again. Like, you can't express your feelings for me in the way that I want you to express. So you were so open and emotional a second ago, but Murray actually spins it on its head by saying she didn't intend to tell his real feelings, and the knowledge will just leave Nico with more conflicting impulses, because she might like, when it gets into danger, she might actually hold herself back in fear of like what could actually happen to Murray, and vice versa. That could still happen to him as well. But he was still it still wasn't the case of like it didn't mean anything to him. In that moment, he was able to talk freely about his emotions, and he felt really excited. It all, like I said last time, it felt like a weight was being lifted off his chest, and it was giving wings, as it says right here. Like, his heart had been given wings, and it expanded as calm and serene as the surface of a pond. So I like that metaphor that he uses right there. And he felt like he was living in a warm, sun-dark shade. And yeah, of course, like, this is clearly Murray going all poetic on us. But yeah, that's Nemu's job to do the poems, not Murray. Don't steal Nemu's thunder here. But he continues on by saying, I never told anyone I was in love with them before, and I had no idea it would feel like that. Like, he never felt like this was like, oh my god, this is amazing, this is like the best feeling I can feel right now. But again, like he's been saying, like, I just, like, at this point, I just feel like a familiar, even though I've been able to get my feelings out for you, Nico. I still feel like a familiar to you. But yeah, Nico goes on and says, how are you feeling now? Free release has been dispelled. And Murray like just lays it down to her, like, look, I get it. And I'm not going to take back what I said, because that is just how much I've realised how strong my feelings for you truly are, Nico. And in a way, he seems like he's very glad that it was able to actually come out in the open, and he was able to be like, no, this is not legitimately something that I'm doing because I have a sense of duty. No, I legitimately love this girl and I want to protect her. But he does acknowledge that, yeah, this is a big confrontation coming, there's a lot of trouble coming, and this is something that we cannot be doing right now, because we're going to be having to have even more focus and alerts than ever before. We can't let our guards down, because there's going to be warlocks and maybe other rogue witches that are just going to come after you, Nico. Like, we've got Juru to be taken care of, for God's sake, so we can't be going on like this, and your safety takes priority over everything, regardless of how we feel about each other, and regardless of how I feel. I've still got to be your familiar, and I've got to protect you from these dangers. But once all that's over, we can finally start acting like a real couple. But for now, we can't go on dates or anything. Once the buyer's over and everything's resolved, then I'll be able to tell you what I'm feeling once again. So how do you feel about that? And again, I do like the direction that Murray took here, because it is actually legitimately a sensible thing to do. Like he says, like, he's not saying that he doesn't love Nico, he's not rejected, he's just being like, look, let's put our feelings on hold for a moment, because we've got bigger fish to fry. We've got wars that are going to come, battles that are going to be fought, your life's going to be in danger, my life's going to be in danger, and we can't be holding ourselves back because of our feelings for each other. So let's wait for all this to over, and then we'll see where we go from there. And Nico actually accepts this answer. She's like, yeah, that's fine. I'm just happy that you said you're in love with me. Even if we can't officially start dating, we could just leave it like that until then. So yeah, I'm glad that they took this mature angle of it. And I feel like by the end of part 3, once everything is all said and done, if since it does seem like there isn't going to be a part 4 like I initially anticipated. So we're going to get the whole revival June, the war between the warlocks, everything all being resolved. And hopefully, like Parajam says, maybe we'll get a few like buffer chapters at the end to be like, no, Nico and Murray can actually be a proper couple for once. So as the others are listening, they're feeling like so relaxed right now, probably thinking what the audience is thinking, like, thank God they've actually talked this through and discussed like what's going to happen next. But of course, because of this, the spell that they're under starts to wear off because they got relaxed, and Murray, of course, gets really irritated by them. Like, oh, okay, come on, you really came to spy on both of us. But anyway, Nico goes on and says, and so with that earlier scent of spring ruffling through the air, the new couple's confession so wrapped up. So no, this is not Nico, this is the narrator saying that. And yeah, this is where Nico like just goes full overboard, like, oh my God, he said he loved me, he said he loved me, he said he loved me. Like, she was obviously buying up those feelings, but now that he said it, like, oh my God, he's loved me, he said he loved me. And she makes a social media account so that everyone, so that she could just post everyone like, Murray said she loved me, Murray said he loved me, Murray said he loved me. And everyone's just there like, what are you posting? Selfies or stuff? And she's hinting at the fact that she really just wants to like just date this guy, and she's like, oh really? I am, yeah, obviously playing dumb to everyone, but yeah, she's obviously hinting of just like, hey, Murray confessed to me, with like giving hints to it to the audience, with one of them being a selfie with her in Murray's shirt, with him just barely visible in the background, like, hey, look at me, look who's like, look at the boyfriend, look at my future boyfriend, future husband, that's right there. And the one where they show his coffee cup across the table, and one where it's clearly a place that she would never go on his own, like basically his entire like vintage collection. Like, oh my God, are we gonna get in part 3 like just the last chapter of the vintage clothes collection? Probably at this rate. And they keep going on like, oh, there's this one as well where you're nearly an invisible caption that could mean all kinds of things. So it's clearly obvious that you two are, even though you say you're not dating, it's clearly obvious that you guys see yourselves as actually dating at this point. Nico, again, clearly is denying, like, no, we're not dating at all, And they're like, okay, yeah, we know, but at the same time, we know that you guys are secretly wanting to date each other, but we know that you guys can't at this point. As Mirio goes on and says, she hasn't said in so many words, but these posts make it obvious to anyone with an eye, like, yeah, this girl clearly is in love with the guy that's in the background right there. And while all this is going on, we have Ban and Kegel being like, hey, Murray doesn't seem upset about it, so maybe we should ask him how he feels about it. As Kegel says, like, hey, Murrito, how do you feel about all of this? Your girlfriend's kind of getting out of hand here, kind of like being like, hey, even though we're not dating, we're so obviously dating right now. And of course, he's sitting there with his head buried in the phone, totally unresponsive, like trying to be like, nope, not listening, just focusing on my phone. So focusing on my phone, as they're like, come on, dude, why are you pretending that none of this is happening? We know you don't mess with your phone that much, so we know like something is going on in your mind. Like, probably thinking like, Nico, just shut up right now. Just stop this right now. That's probably what's going through his mind right now. But he's focusing on a mobile game where you just pack lunches and send them over and over again. As Nico starts to be like, Hey Maury, oh, is that the one I mentioned? Oh, I totally get what it's like. Obviously, trying to flirt with Maury, like in a whispery way, as everyone's just like, no, she's clearly doing this deliberately to kind of notice me, Maury, as they continue on and say, still, I can't get why she's like, I can't say I don't get why she's like this. Like, they obviously know, like, yeah, she's doing this deliberately because she's like, even though we can't date at the moment, that doesn't mean we can't be like all flirty with each other inside the house and everything. And she's living together with a childhood friend who is now soon to be the perfect boyfriend. If these aren't glory days, what are they? That's basically the conclusion that they've all come to, and she's got to be having the time of her life, so they might as well just have all the fun that she can in the world, as she's getting way too close into his personal space. But even then, Murray's like not even paying attention, but at the same time he's probably thinking like, Nico, give me some personal space. Like, okay, I know you love me, I love you, but seriously, we need like, just can you get away from me a moment? And she's quit trying to secretly pass him little messages on sticky notes, but at the same time he's probably like, yeah, okay, can you stop it right now? Like, again, continuing with the flirting. Now she's suddenly being like, it's so awkward to try and talk with everyone watching them, as they continue to give up the vibes of, don't give us that, could you please take a hint and leave Grants, we aren't in the way, we're allowed to essentially be here. You guys are just like doing this out in the open, like, even though they could clearly go to another room to do all of this. And of course, to round out Nico's silly little awkward flirtatious moments in this chapter, she says, I'm sorry he can't just be this way sometime. I'm sorry he can just be this way sometimes, yeah, even though that is something you can be as well, Nico. And she continues on to say, I know he's so stoic, it's hard to figure out what he's actually thinking. But again, we obviously know what he is thinking right now, because we've been with Murray for like the last nearly 5 years of publications. So like, we kind of get an idea of this character, like, even though he presents himself as like this stoic, bland, emotionless character, deep down, like, that's just being bottled up by his true feelings, where his true feelings probably is are being like, oh, just let me stop this now. We've talked about this, Nico. Like, I know you want to flirt with me in the house, but seriously, let's not do this around. Like, he's probably like feeling mega embarrassed by the fact that she's doing this in front of everyone, where this is supposed to be like a personal one-to-one thing in his eyes. So how long they're all wondering how long they're going to have to be dealing with being like this, probably until the rest of the series now, or until you get into the major battles that are going to be coming up. As Murray now feels like he's actually had enough, and he starts to go grocery shopping. But Nico's like, okay, I'll come with you. Like, that's a fun thing for a couple to do. We'll go grocery shopping, find out what we're all gonna have for dinner, and have a romantic meal for two. Even though there's like 4 or 5 other people, but that's besides the point. And as Murray says, like, oh, you're coming along. He's like, okay, everyone, we've got to go into familiar mode. Like, come on, we're all going together. The days when we can just relax and hang out are over. So we've got to be on our guard all the time for Nico. So it's like, again, even though he's being like, he's probably thinking like, Nico, can you stop this? He's also probably thinking like, Nico, seriously, we've got to be on our guard all the time. Like, he's probably like just majorly being paranoid everywhere right now. But of course, everyone agrees, like, yeah, that's kind of like the biggest thing we've got to be focusing on right now. Just focusing on protecting Nico, being on our guard, because warlocks and witches and anyone could be coming at them at any point right now. Just grab Nico, because sooner or later, the word's going to get out to the warlocks like, hey, Nico's back to normal. We've got to go and get her right now to get Juru resurrected. So they're all going to be on the guard right now. And as they walk to a grocery store, Nico eventually apologised to Murray, saying like, yeah, I kind of went a bit overboard here, and I can't afford to get carried away right now. I'll be more careful from now on. And Murray should say like, yeah, okay, it's fine, just trying to calm down in the future. Before Nico goes into her thoughts, and it's like, that said, I wonder, will he get mad if I even try to hold his hand? Like, is that really too much to ask here? And this is where we get like the classic moment of Nico just being like, going to touch his hand, and Murray at first not really getting the hint, but eventually being able to grab her hand. And I suppose he's thinking like, well, if I'm only grabbing her hand, I can consider that like actually being a form of protection rather than feeling it a bit romantic. So able to grab her hand, she looks so happy as they continue to walk into the distance, and that's where the chapter ends. And like I said, pretty much like the finale of part 2. Like, maybe the next chapter will be like the true finale of part 2 leading into part 3, whatever part that's going to be called, like the war between witches and warlocks, like the war for like the war of Nico, like whatever that's going to be. But we know like there's going to be a big battle, big war, like lots of action, because this is the big thing that's been lacking from part 2, like just the sense of action, which part 1 was able to do. Part 1 was able to do both the slice of life and the action and the story elements and just gel them all together, whereas part 2 really hasn't had that. Like, it's just been mainly slice of life, working to get Nico back to this point. I mean, like I said, Charmy and Ban have been really great additions to the cast, and we got like the big flashback between the parents and the witches of the past, but again, I feel like we could have done with a little bit more action, a little bit more story in part 2, just to like keep it on par with part 1. But part 2 itself hasn't been like god awful, but when it's been like at its worst, it's been at like the most painful things to get through. Like the chapters prior to Nico coming back to her normal, like I said, and I still stand by it, like they're the low point of the series, like the absolute worst chapters of the series, because it just feels like, okay, we're panning this out, stretching this out for way longer than it really needs to. But like I said, now that Nico and Murray have finally got the theme straight, we're finally buckling down, they know what they need to do. The villains are obviously going to be coming back for Nico, obviously try and have her take on Juru's conscience or become Juru herself when Juru revives. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of battles, and like I said, still a little bit more story that needs to be addressed, like with all of Nemu's storyline being wrapped up with her and Keigo's relationship. That still needs to be addressed, and like I said, maybe Charmy being the student now that Nico has grown up a bit. And yeah, those are all the things that still need to be handled with and dealt with before the series finally starts wrapping up. And like I said, maybe about 100 chapters, so maybe, like I said, maybe about 320, 325. I feel like that would be like the perfect capstone to the series. But anyway, guys, what did you think of this chapter? Let me know, like, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. And this has been Lasherluke signing off. Later, guys.